But what was key about that was that the message on it, the agriculture must be made fashionable. It's key for any development. The challenge we are grappling with, Prof, the Eastern Cape in its entirety, umhlaba wayo, 86% umhlaba wayo is an arable land. But we are only utilizing 6% in tilling the land and producing for our country. We have got all the articles going all around, poverty levels. We know we've been here for more than 200 years. We grew up in that extreme poverty, as you are saying, Prof. We grew up in that environment, all of us. But it can't be right. No one must be condemned into that. So how do you turn around this situation with this kind of limited resources, all other things being equal? How do you turn around this situation? But the private sector is there. What I've realized about Eastern Cape is that we've been leading government moving forward without engaging private sector to move along with us. That's why we have got first Mercedes-Benz here, 65 years, Volkswagen down there, 75 years. Uti, Wilfred Poth, the chairman of Mercedes, we have been growing a global competitive. Uti is the most competitive. It used to be the top globally. This plant is an Eastlander. That's why it's the class, the W206. But now they are conceptualizing the new product, which must replace the C-class. Are we going to be ready for that? If Sekhuqinya to come up with laws, legislations that understand that EVs are inevitable. Yes, of course, they said, Ninani Eastern Cape, you are ahead of the curve when we engage. We've got to. We don't have a choice. We can't collapse what is working in our province. But maybe that minister will be announcing those in February in the budget speech. Because the world is in tentacles. They are worried. They don't know why South Africa is not coming on board. Countries are moving. Egypt in the Prof. We've spoken about 4 or 5 years ago about the smart city. The Egypt is smart cities. When I interacted with the project leaders, they say to me, this company that is facilitating this development was actually formed in 2016. 2016. Big. They are moving Cairo into a new Cairo. They call it admin capital. Moving the entire government. Built it from the open land, scratch government had only land belonging to soldiers. They said, hey, business, wherever you are, come here. This is where they told me that, don't you know that every phrase is made in China, including the phrase, I love you, is made in China? So the more they tell you I love you, no can't thing in China. We have a kumkokotelo wodwa lo. Hayi antedlondo. Kuba dinifuna nihle lapha namhlanje Prof nangomso. Ngomgqibelo sinomcimbi omkhulu kakhulu apha wamahashi. Okuthiwa iBerlin November apha. Yo. Umuntu oze apha engazanga nehusband yakhe okanye ispouse sakhe. Ndicela usifonele sikulandele kuba phaya emahashi kunzima kakhulu. Kubaleka amahashi kwi-race course, kubaleka abantu kwimakhizi. So it's important that bring your spouse and have fun. This is a week for that. That's why we've got this summit and all this. Sunday ungagoduki man, go to Monday. Just go around in Tanzania. Uyobona uJeff pha kune hang easy. Hang easy. So Udamani will be saying these things much better than me, but I'm just saying over and above what was demonstrated and shown in the video. We've got a lot, because we are that province which offers everything. As the Eastern Cape Provincial Government, we are embarking on a digital transformation or transformational journey with Microsoft. He spoke about Microsoft. India, if I confused Prof, when I was appointed as a premier, is to see every government department owning its own license with Microsoft, one government, 13 licenses with one company. And I was asking myself, how does it happen? Because Microsoft must work with us as government. This government must march together. And indeed, they brought a lot of innovation on that, and that has gone. That is happening nicely. This is to ensure that we are more responsive in meeting the expectations of constituents who are accustomed to services being securely delivered through the multiple channels such as the banking sector. We are also embracing cloud computing as it was presented here earlier on. The DPSA has issued two important directives that apply to us. They are the Directive of Determination of Cloud Usage and the Directive of Public Service Information Security. Cloud computing is a game changer. It offers agility, flexibility, and low cost of ownership to help government be responsible in providing services. We are only about services. That's why those who are employed in government, Doc, must understand this. You are called a civil servant. We don't call you with your career. We don't have careers in government. We have civil servants. You are there to serve. That's why we call you that you are earning a salary. It simply says, sebenza ubhatalwa. So ubhatalwa ungekasebenzi. It's convenience loba sithi xa uappointed as a director sikunike leto uhambe uyothatha imoto entsha because you are appointed as a director. Because sifuna uimprove lo service. Government people must know that. That's why we cannot take 17 years running around like a headless chicken. The first year should have told us, so I never even had plans and ambition that at some point I would be the premier. This bonus and the figure. So now I must prove myself that I'm here. So in whatever that we're trying to do. So all this thing is meant to change the landscape and make sure that we improve our efficiency and our effectiveness in delivering services to our people. The cloud computing indeed is a game changer, as I've said. It offers agility, flexibility, and low-cost ownership, and we are actually hard at that work with Microsoft. Through our partnership with Microsoft, government email, as it has been indicated, has really been actually improved, and we are improving more services. When we came here, Prof, we had only about 5 government, we had about 5 PFMA clean audits. I think it was only about 2 governments and 3 entities when we were coming in 2019. Now we've got 15 clean audits. 15. 7 government departments, legislature, 7 entities, public entities that are in the province. 15. And we're saying we want clean audit. Before people talk about these trust deficit stories, work on what you have first. Prove that you can be responsible for what you are given. Then you will earn that respect. You are not going to demand it. You are not going to knock at people's doors and say, hey, through our partnership with Microsoft, government is actually moving with speed in ensuring that we are into this digital space. And our partnership with Microsoft also extends to the crucial aspects of digital skills development. Microsoft is committed to roll out skills development programs in collaboration with ECDC, which will be implemented in the new year. This program includes training of 2,500 teachers on M365 and 600 learners on Minecraft, digital literacy, training of 60 women and youth in the Christianity district, donation of computer labs in schools in the Eastern Cape, and digital engineering and finance skills graduate development program. 1994, Eastern Cape was below 50% on metric outcomes. 1994. This year, we're at 77%. And we said we are at the league of 80%. We cannot be there. We are from being number last. We can never go back there. And I can tell you, Prof, with the work that we have done, because this is not a fluke, it responds to our plans that we have put in place. And we're following those plans. We'll be actually getting that 80% come January in the Eastern Cape. With much more improved quality on math. We have been excelling anyway on mathematics and physical science and accounting. The belt that is strong here is the most poorest belt in this province. I'm still trying to figure out, probably the research will help me at some point. Is the Wild Coast belt. Yombezana, Lusikisiki, Flagstaff, Ntabangulu, Port St. John's, and all that. This is where you get most quality on mathematics. We are excited about the future of digital transformation in our province. My appeal to ICT industry stakeholders is that we must work together to strengthen cybersecurity, to protect our citizens and important data in our systems. Interpol's African Cyber Threat Assessment Report of 2022 says a total of 230 million cyber threats were detected in South Africa, out of which 219 million, or 95.21%, were email-based attacks. Even more concerning is that our country is already suffering from an alarming 100% increase in mobile banking application fraud and is experiencing, on average, 577 malware attacks every hour. We have a battle in our hands. Let us close ranks. Colleagues, as many of you would know, the provincial government the provincial government is rolling out the broadband infrastructure project in all districts and metros of our province. This is an 4.8 billion investment by the provincial government aimed at enhancing connectivity, which will run until March 2032. As a figure, 4.8 billion, we should be having many of these young people that are here developed to another level. Because these are people who must also help us to maintain these facilities. We are connected. Broadband department infrastructure, department net is connected. But fiber, Vodacom and everyone else, we're going to call a meeting on how are we going to actually collaborate into that space so that government doesn't put a parallel fiber when the infrastructure is already there. How do we work together to ensure that we improve that? As you are here, the captains of industry, think about that and to be able to come with some ideas to us. In our criteria of choosing the sites to connect, we prioritize school. As you know, we have already connected about 1,900, and health, we've connected about 500, libraries 150. The remaining sites of our government administration offices. The benefit of the broadband project are already being felt in the connected sites. For instance, in health, we've digitized medical records. This is where our biggest problem of medical legal comes from. This is what we're trying to address with it immediately. Government has lost billions. We are actually exposed at about 32 billion on that problem of medical legal. Kukabantu abahleli nje bayekile upractice ajonge nje isigulane esiphume esibhedlela utofe ndawo utheni uqhwalela xa utofileyo afake iclaim. So xa ifika phaa ngaphakathi, because this is a syndicate, ifile ayikho, Because law and Zalando is working with someone inside. Steal the file, throw it away. When government is litigated, government cannot go and defend. These are the biggest problems that we've been having. Kunzima ukulawula urhulumente, ibhetele kwala university. In connected schools, the delivery of lessons is now on electronic platforms through learner videos and presentation. By Friday this week, all schools will be having their books for the next academic year. And in the Prof. Lando, and the exuted, why couldn't you look at consequence management? Who go I go? One best cousin, or cousin, or one best cousin. Where's the land of car? And everyone who's employed from DG down knows what should be done. We all understand that the difference between politicians and bureaucrats, politicians starts from specifics to general and bureaucrats starts from general to specific, but something must be done. Work must be done. That line is drawn. That's how we're going to change Eastern Cape, and we are changing it. I was happy this morning when I got a screenshot, WhatsApp from someone who was just driving in a nice experience out of King Williamstown. So it's unbelievable that I'm driving on a bridge like this, driving through these traffic cycles around King Williamstown. So, the mind is sitting again, baqhela ulindelwa ezikoneni unilinde kula mahlathi yabheke ezwelisha sobe uphinde umbone because ebreak uzaba kwi-interchange awuzuhamba yonke ububheke ebhisho uzawuyebhisho nangapha enasikene kwandabakazi the popular spot awulinde kwandabakazi hope umbone uzafika kukwi-interchange pha kwandabakazi uxaka uzawuthini. That's the work that we're doing to change the province of Eastern Cape. In the next 2 years, he will be adding 2 largest bridges, largest and longest bridges in Africa. They are being constructed as I'm talking here. One in Lusikisiki, in Sikaba, the other one in Mtendu, Lusikisiki. But they are not here in the continent. They will be here in Eastern Cape, here in South Africa for the first time. They will all come and jump there, pass to the pass. So that's kind of what they're doing. The problems of all these water issues. But you need technology in all this. Now, Minister Senzo was there on site. And I asked, I launch on a but we need a technological advancement. We need ICT to help us unpack all these things. I must hasten to add that through the implementation of the broadband project, we have open opportunities for SMMEs in the ICT space. But we need tight management, tight control. When I realized that most of SMMEs, because the problem is Eastern Cape, it's a problem of people who are living dual life. There are those who live life in Johannesburg, permanent, but also they are from Eastern Cape. Every opportunity that is in Eastern Cape, iqale yazwe ngabo pha. Bafike bazoba zi-SMMEs zalapha. Bekhona ababahle lapha abalindele uba zi-SMMEs zalapha. So that's what we are trying to look at. When we realized from the first phase that, okay, a mistake happened, we said, open it up, create this, make sure that we're getting our people. Those who don't think that they will find greener pastures elsewhere, but they are patriotic enough to stay here, work with us, develop this province to a higher pedestal. The progress we are making on ICT infrastructure and connectivity in our province is also complemented by the partners in the business sector. Just recently, the To Africa cable landed in Gqeberha and will be ready for service by December 2023. The landing of this sea cable will, amongst other things, improve internet speed and strengthen the reliability of connectivity in the province. Colleagues, the issue of connectivity is not a luxury. It is a necessity to reduce the cost of doing business, and it is also a security matter in an environment where crime is rife. So we appreciate the private sector partners such as SA Connect, Vodacom, MTN and USASA, Mamlungwan. The work that you are doing in OR Tambo, the work that you are doing in Alfred Nzo, those are two poorest districts in the entire country with the biggest population we have. SA Connect is planning to connect close to 1 million unconnected households in our province over the next 36 months through a project that will be implemented by Broadband Infraco and Centec. They've already connected 500 households in rural communities of Emaklasibe and Mount Elif. In this financial year, Vodacom is also expanding their broadband coverage in the investment, as well as MTN putting more as well investment in the province to improve the connectivity for our people. The still problem that we have is this stock theft and all that. There have been a lot of young people coming with ideas. I think government must still warm up into this, of creating chip into the cars. Chips are in the cars now, but into the cows now. Komo yako ibone uhleli kwakwendlini uyoluse ngecomputer ukwazi ukuyenza lona. So that's important because that's another life we have because Eastern Cape, many animals are here. The cattle, herd of cattle, the flock of sheep, the goats, pigs are here. But we are still number 5 in producing the road meat. It's on the wrong agro-processing the value chain, and we are attending to that as a government. It is because of our collective effort with the private partners that we have been able to increase internet penetration in our province in the latest decade, in the last decade. In the 2022 census report, Stats SA says in 2011, internet access by cell phone was at 12.8% in our province, and in 2022, it was at 55.5%. The report also says the number of households with no access to internet was at 79.9% in 2011. Today, it is at 34.3%. This is a good story of progress. As we move forward, let us remember that technology is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Our digital infrastructure projects are more than just technological advancements. They are pathways to empowerment, especially for our poor and marginalized communities. I call upon each one of you as stakeholders and partners in progress to recognize the transformative potential of ICT. We must use ICT to reach the unreached, to give a voice to the voiceless, and to ensure that no one in the Eastern Cape is left behind in the digital age. Our aim should not only be to introduce technology for technology's sake, but to leverage it as a means to achieve tangible improvements in the lives of our people. Let us therefore stand united in the endeavor. Let us collaborate more, innovate more, and dedicate ourselves more to this cause. By doing so, we'll build an Eastern Cape that is not only connected digital, but that is also strong, inclusive, and prosperous in the true sense of word. We've been exposed to the thought leadership. Excellent presentation, what we need moving forward to actually move mountains. Thank you very much.
I know we can do better than that. Let's please put our hands together for our Honorable Premier, Oscar Mamuyane. All right, to speedily move along, I'll ask the team that is going to make sure they set up for the panel discussion to come and do that now. Is this guy working? Not yet, not yet. It still says green. All right, there I go. There we go. So the team can come and get ready for the panel discussion. Next on our program, we will move to a panel discussion that will be hosted by Mr. Ted. Can I get, so I'm going to ask everyone to come up just for time's sake. Mr. Ted Keenan is going to come and be our moderator. And he is he's in the business correspondence of the Daily Dispatch. And this is going to be the roundtable discussion. So Mr. Ted Keenan, please take a seat. I'll share this with you soon. Can we please put our hands together for our moderator? And then I'm just going to call up the panelists for this conversation. The panelists are Dr. Pali Lehohla, Director of the Economic Modeling Academy. If we can put our hands together for Doctor. And then if we please feel free to sit anywhere on the stage. Next up we'll call again Professor Mamkhete Pakeng from the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, and of course our Lifetime Achievement recipient 2023. And then next, can we please put our hands together as I call up our panelists, please. And then Ms. Nolita Peterson, the chairperson of the BCMDA. Can we please put our hands up for Ms. Peterson? And then once again, can we put our hands together for Mr. Nation Matigiza from the EC Office of the Premier. There we go. And then lastly, Ms. Twaita Matigizela, Chief Executive Officer of USASA. Can we please put our hands together for our distinguished guests? Please note, Mr. Ted, there will be, I think the team will have a timer ready, so you'll just conduct the conversation, and then there will be, of course, you'll see how the time goes. That's me saying that you don't have to tell it to the panelists. At least they will also see how the time is moving. And while we wait for them to sort this out, we want to thank some of our sponsors, such as Microsoft. Yes, thank you very much. Microsoft, Valpre, and all the sponsors. I'll spend the day thanking all the sponsors that have really helped us today, because without them, this event would not be possible. So to Microsoft and Valpre, we really, really thank you. And that is my time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just before we kick off with this round table, which is, can technology foster an effective public service? Hanli, I think they must have written this wrong. Can technology foster? Surely it should have been technology can foster. Okay, before we start, I would like to just mention something from an article that was compiled by the World Governance Indicators and the World Bank. To quote, "Governance and human development are indivisible. Human development cannot be sustained without good governance. Governance cannot be sound unless it sustains human development. Developing the capacity for good governance is a primary means of eradicating poverty." So, with that in mind and the eradicating poverty, let's move on to talk about, can technology foster? Should we start with you, sir?
Yes, no, thank you very much. Okay, yours works for me. But thank you very much. Let me, taking the floor, acknowledge all protocols. How do you capture the idea, can technology foster development and enhance public service? Two examples come to mind. In fact, three examples come to mind, which are both at the personal level, which are at the private sector level, and then, of course, public sector, in 3 minutes. First, when I was in Lesotho, and I was in this place where roads were not even there, and then on my mobile phone, Tugufu, who was in Pennsylvania, could talk to me and I could answer that call. It was groundbreaking. But when you think about migratory labor system, which afflicts this province over a period of time, I mean ages, and the clouds are forming, and it's time to plow, but the letter still has to go to the mine to get permission from the husband. And then it comes back after 2 weeks. The land is now dry, let alone ability to plant. Now you can send a message and the decision is made. The third is when I was a statistician general, and here we are, we have to process census of 2001. And having struggled with key entry, and then you deal with scanning, and now I think the current statistician general has gone fully digital. I mean, those improvements progressively deliver better to the public service in a much, much, much clearer way. And when you combine the statistics with the geography, and you can't do that on a piece of paper, the technology has to be at that item level of geographical points, and then the data that has been collected and aggregated and analyzed in a way that the premier can say, well, I can see here in Flagstaff where there was no water before, now there is access to that water, and geographically we can see who are. So no doubt technology should and can. Thank you.
Let's just swap microphones because that one is not working. Professor, do you have strong, concrete thoughts on this aspect, or would you just like to discuss it generally?
Well, I mean, I want to say we know from experience in other countries that technology does. So, I mean, I dream of a South Africa that it would be possible for someone on the phone to know when is the bus coming. Can I book my appointment at the hospital, at the public hospital, that you don't need to have queues? Can I pay my electricity on the same app, not many different apps, on the same? I just click and I can do that. Can I be told that there's services that's taking place in sanitation or whatever, and so I won't have water for a particular period? It's all there. And I think also it may be also good for me to know that the premier is going to be interviewed on ENCA. It can be some of those things that when I'm in the Eastern Cape physically, then it can sense, the app can sense that I'm in the Eastern Cape, and then it has got a message that's going around that the premier will be interviewed by Xoli Mgambi on what. Do you see what I mean? And then I can click on it. And I think when I say technology is an enabler, I mean exactly, it should make my life as a citizen of the province easier. To access even free courses. Microsoft might have free courses that I can take. And because I'm a curious citizen of the Eastern Cape, then I can see it and I can click, and it takes so many days, and they tell me, if you complete it within 90 days, you don't pay. Yes, there are platforms that do that. IBM does that and so on. And then I can see that I can do that. I click. I can see opportunities for learnerships, for jobs, for whatever. Not only in government, but if I'm in the Eastern Cape, it can sense. It gives me those opportunities in the Eastern Cape. I think it can enhance service delivery. And I think that's one thing that's easy to do immediately. We having some young people who don't even have degrees, who can develop apps, we can sit with and say, do this, and then we can see which service is not yet connected. I don't want to go to Home Affairs to go and queue for a passport, a new passport or card ID, and when I get there, they say the system is down. I want to look at my thing, the system is down, so I don't go. I feel respected by my government. I feel respected. I feel that my government knows that I'm busy, I've got a lot of things to do. I may be a new graduate, I may be a student, but I'm not going to queue there. When I get there, it's my turn. Then they say, it's down, and we don't know when it's going to be up again. So I don't know whether to sit or to go. I want to be able to sit and say, it's down, okay. I mean, someone can complain about the fact that it's down. I'm glad that at least I know. Then I can go on and do something else. And when it comes on, then they say it's on. And then I can take my Uber and go there. So something like that. I think these things don't even have to wait for any kind of infrastructure. We can do it now. Of course, when you look at places like Dubai, it's much more advanced, right? And people, sometimes people are very suspicious of technology, that they take your face, whatever, and is it possible that they monitor where you go? Maybe it's not such a bad idea, because if a thief can be monitored where they go, maybe we can deal with them. I mean, if you think about it, people don't even know about the power of blockchain that can help us manage corruption. But I met a young Zimbabwean young man who said, I'm going to Afghanistan. He works in a UN office and he does blockchain. His job is blockchain. And I said to him, but why are African leaders rejecting blockchain, not going into it? Well, it's suspicion, but it's also because they know if you implement that, we will be able to trace that this tender started here. We can trace where the mischief happened. So it's not very popular, right? We can trace. But some of the things we can do now. You can do blockchain now. We can do that app that I'm talking about. It's simple stuff, actually. We can do it now. And then we can pace ourselves. Are we there? Not there? Not. Citizens can feel respected, but also served better. Thank you.
Thank you. Your lectures must have been the most highly attended ones on your campus.
Until I start giving assignments. As you can imagine, I'm very demanding when it comes to work. So the first 2 weeks my classes were full. And then the real people will stay, because it gets tough.
Should we just move on and seat order? Your feelings?
Thank you very much. Indeed, I was introduced that I'm the chair of BCMDA, but I must also say it for the meeting that I also sit on the CETA board. So when we talk technology, that is something I can identify with. And part of your question you asked, is technology supposed to enable service delivery? We exist for exactly that. I've got my colleague who's going to talk for CETA. I'm not going to talk for CETA. But we exist as CETA. We are supposed to be the IT company for government, to enable government to achieve on service delivery. Whether we are there or not there, that is something for my colleague to touch when he's got the platform. But indeed, technology can change. It can change, it can improve service delivery. The Premier mentioned in his address about the clean audits. I can identify with that because in my previous life, I used to be an auditor myself. And if things were digitized, it would make the audits themselves go easy. It would also make it easy for the auditees to produce information. Of course, the tendering issue, it's going to be kept, the problems. If we digitize, why do we still submit tenders? Somebody must drive all the way from Bizana to submit a tender in Bisho. Why? Why can they not submit digitally? It's supposed to make life easier, but no, because it's also not going to enable those that need to rig the tenders. So technology is that powerful and it's that important. About 2 months ago, we had a privilege of going to China on my CETA cap, and I was amazed when we sat at Hetao, Shenzhen, Hong Kong Science and Technology Innovation Corporation Zone. Premier, if you can sit there, you don't even need to go to the office. You can sit there on the screen, you will know exactly what's happening in your province in real time. So it's so digitized that they showed us literally that even the plan of the city, it's digitized. You put it on the screen, you see exactly where your pipes are, even underground, where your gas pipes are, where your water, sewage, etc. You see that in real time. If there's a leak somewhere, you can see it actually in real time because there's cameras everywhere on the streets. You can actually literally see. Then how does that also help in terms of curbing crime? It helps because people know there are eyes everywhere. So I believe technology definitely will foster service delivery. And part of that, and part of what they showed us, Premier, is that you can actually get a report to see how long it took for a query to be resolved. If somebody has reported a leak, you can be able to get that report that so-and-so reported this leak at this time, and only it took 2 days for the next person to attend to it. It took another 3 days, but you know on average that task is supposed to take you maybe a day or less than a day to complete. Then you can easily monitor and evaluate, and you can see who is sleeping on the job. So technology can do a lot for service delivery. As I had said, Prof has touched on something I thought I wanted to touch on, the issue of home affairs. I'm not going to talk about it because we're affected as CETA. When the system is down, we know we're not going to sleep because we need to answer. But digitization, my ID, it's still sitting at Home Affairs. I did it last year in January. I got a notification later that it arrived. But I don't have time to go and queue up there for the whole day because it took me the whole day to queue the first time to go and do it. I'm not going to have time to go and queue. I'm still using my green book. Why is it not being dispatched to my house so that I pay for the extra service? Why? It doesn't happen. So indeed, technology does make life easier, does make service delivery easy. It does make monitoring and evaluation easy. It does make consequence management easy. Just on the last one, a typical example where an organization is refusing to embrace technology, and on the other hand, the Premier wants a clean audit. They do things outside the system. They don't want to embrace technology. What happens when the person leaves because they're doing things themselves manually in their corner? What happens when they leave? The organization collapses. Had things been digitized, when a person leaves, the organization will still be intact. So I do believe we have to change. There needs to be a revolution. We need to understand that technology is not here to take jobs. It's going to change the way the jobs are done. It's going to create new jobs. It's not necessarily going to make people jobless completely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Moving on.
Okay, this is much better. Thank you, Program Director. The question you asked is a question that we are grappling with in solving, right? We're not grappling in solving it because we are not aware of the problems. I think we are stuck at a place as government and as citizens where we know where the solutions are, but we can't unlock solutions. Gardner says now, when you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, at the bottom now, it's moved from psychological needs to connectivity, which means enablement, which means service delivery, which means insights, which means promptedness, and which then takes away the ability to always be reactional. If you look at our government today and how we function, somebody must say, somebody must doi, somebody must stand in the queue. But in a connected country, you then start to relieve those problems. You enable a population to start becoming creative. Because now they don't have basic issues like standing in the queue the whole day. Now you're giving them space to be creative with the time. But up until we understand that these enablements are created by technology and by connectivity, you then are starting to now inform where the country should go, instead of dealing with background and legacy issues. And this is where we are stuck, I think, as government and as citizens. We are always looking backwards and not embracing what the future has in store for us. And that's where technology is. You're starting to create accessibility. I work for an organization. Our sole mandate, we exist to close the digital gap. The problems we have not been able to do that is because we are always looking back. And we are always saying, oh, 14 years ago, it was done this way. No, we must break the mold. For us to break the mold, we must then start being revolutionaries and being change makers and being adopticians of our future. You're starting to adopt a future that says, it does not exist now, but I have a vision of what it should look like when it exists. And this then becomes the problem that we find ourselves. We are not moving as government because we are saying, let's fix the past. But what about the future, right? And what about solving and enabling your citizens to become solution providers? Because standing in the queue is not going to assist me. I was recently in the UK for a graduation ceremony. Everything I needed was on a QR code. Where I should sleep, how I should commute, 2 hours outside of London. Everything was interconnected in a QR code. Today we are talking about e-health, e-government, and we're saying, but these are conversations we should have had 20 years ago. And why are we not solving the issues that are going to be solved, that are going to exist 20 years from now? Because we are looking for, and if we allow connectivity and technology to foster that, then we are going to start moving. Thank you.
Perhaps I can just ask you another question. The gap, which you said was 20 years, is probably correct. But is there a way to take a quantum leap from where we are now to where we should be if we had those 20 years?
No, I absolutely think there is a way. If you look at just the digital connectivity, if you look at the Ministry of Communications and Digital Services, if the efforts that we are all as entities exist to do and achieve, if we collaborate seamlessly and stop the bureaucracy that says, no, but my mandate does not support this mandate, we then channel all our efforts towards deliberate, intentional activities that then close the digital divide. That's the only way we're going to do it. If I'm sitting and saying, I'm a fund, I'm sitting back and I'm not enabling an environment that collaborates, identifies, preempts, because that is another big problem. We are not preemptive enough as a country and as government entities. So if we are allowing ourselves to collaborate, preempt, have collected efforts, decisive efforts, then we're starting to move and close that digital divide.
Last but not least.
Thank you very much, Moderator. The question that you are asking, from my side, I would say it's not an option. It's the way that we must go. We will not survive or we will not make any progress without technology. So in the provincial government, those of you working in the provincial government, you know that up to 2021, we're having paper payslips. The payslips will be printed in Pretoria, couriered to Bishop, then from Bishop distributed to departments, and departments dispatch cars from Tata to Mount Elif, wherever, to distribute those things. you can imagine the costs involved and the logistics involved. And sometimes you'd get a pay slip a month after you have been paid. So it doesn't really make sense. But from 21, that process was digitized. Now you get your pay slip 15 days before you get paid. This process is so smooth, you don't worry about a pay slip. Government would be spending a lot of money because when you get the pay slip and then you want to go and take a loan for a car or something, you must ask your PA, can you please make a copy of this and all that. There is no need to make copies of anything. The electronic copy that you get is the same one that you are going to send to wherever you are going to do. So there are massive savings for government because the paper is no longer there, the cars are no longer there to be moving up and down, and just the efficiency and ability to be able to report. There's a project that our provincial Dr. Dai is piloting. You know, in the province we have stock theft. They go shop, they get stolen at night and all that. With IoT technologies where the tag is put in the animal, you can, from your phone, get to know when the animal is beyond a certain level that something is wrong and be able to act. So it's those things that tell you that going forward, it's technology, it's nothing else. We can't continue as we are in our traditional methods. So technology is the way to go, and even in our funding, that emphasis must be there because you must invest in order to get the benefits that you intend to get. You can't continue funding technology the way you are funding 20 years ago and expect to make a difference. So that should also be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Professor, I've just had a note to say that you have to leave us in the next 6 or 7 minutes.
What?
That you have to leave us.
Yes.
But not just yet. To change government's attitude towards technology is going to take a massive amount of will on the people who are trying to enforce those changes. And there are people that are working in rural municipalities, especially in the Eastern Cape, that are not going to, A, want to do it, and B, have the expertise to do it. How are we going to solve that problem?
You know, it's interesting when it comes to technology, we always assume that the poorer people will not have interest or access. I mean, if you recall, you and I are a little bit senior in Tatepari. So when cell phones were introduced, I can remember, I think I was working at VETS and we were sitting in the room and someone said, it's not going to work. Telkom will remain the sole provider. Because how are poor people going to first afford this and people in rural areas to use it? And talk about today, many people don't even know what Telkom does in the rural areas because they use this. But move to Kenya and see, I mean, the reason why technology is growing much faster, technological innovation is growing much faster in Africa, even blockchain. The number of blockchain entrepreneurs on the continent that are funded by outside countries and they are funding other entrepreneurs, they say it's growing much more in Africa. And that's because we have so many challenges that technology helps us to solve them. And so young people are innovating. Now, I think people need to understand what's in it for them. We're not introducing it because the premier says so. Yeah. Guys, we are sick and tired of paper. It's heavy in your bags. I'm surprised that you guys still have paper. I dumped paper a long time ago. I don't even have a pen. Because everything happens here. And I still ask my colleagues, why do you write notes in the It's so inconvenient. Guys, you cannot search. You are busy writing notes whilst we are here. 2 weeks from now, you will not be able to find what you wrote. I will be able to find it. Can you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying the Premier says so. I'm saying this thing that you're hanging on to is not saving you. It is wasting your time because you've been writing notes in the beautiful book, madam. You can't tell me what's on page 15. I just search. When I'm watching a documentary as I'm flying, because I love documentaries and I write what I'm learning, I just write trip to Geneva and I write the notes, what I'm learning. If I'm going to Geneva again, I just recall that Geneva trip and write about the learnings that I'm getting. And I'm saying to you, if the idea is not to say the law says so or the boss says so, is to say, guys, what you're doing is not serving you. And to show people how is it not serving them and how is the new going to serve them. Here, last 2 examples. I'm an academic, and I'm sure you know I spent 12 years at VETS as an academic, as a professor, and I ran an entity. 8 years at UNISA as dean and as DVC, and 6 years as GCT. Right. Now, here's the thing. When I was at VETS, during that period, they wanted to do away with paper. Not because of environmental sustainability at the time. If I recall very well, it was because it was too expensive. And so the faculty wants to deal with this, and so they outlawed buying printers. You are not buying printers anymore. You want a printer, you can buy it. And of course, if you're an academic, if you're a top academic who knows how to recruit money, whatever, you can have a couch, a TV, and a printer because you are earning the money yourself. Actually, the university likes you because you bring them money. That's what we do, Premier. That's why I say I'm a rated scientist. Any vice chancellor who's worth their salt knows what I will bring to their university. Millions, because the funders, but you know, they allow me because they want the top researchers to be taken care of, okay? So that they can be more productive, and so that they can. Now, they stopped the printers, and then people started buying their own printers, and then now they have to buy their own paper. With time, they realize, this is not sustainable. Even my research money, I don't need to use that. At UNISA, and that's one model, right? At UNISA, I was there. I remember that the project was led by the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Bajnath, may he so rest in peace. And he said he approached it from the environmental sustainability side. And he started, in his office, there was someone who was calculating our carbon footprint. The lights, the flying, before it became fashionable. And he was talking about environmental sustainability, and he was saying, how much are you contributing to destroying the world? And how are we going to do this? And he said, I'm giving you 3 months, paperless meetings. That was in 2011, 2012. Paperless meetings. People complained, people will always complain. Me, I can't read on the screen, my eyes, what? He said, well, see what you can do. Paperless, no photocopier, no whatever, paperless. You want a computer, we are issuing laptops. They're going to be stolen, whatever. Ultimately, everybody's got it. Who's stealing who's? Because everybody's got it. It's now normalized. You've got it, right? And then we said, that's how I lost paper. I realized paper is not saving me. We run meetings on here. And then, of course, it calls for more technology. Because then you say, but the meeting documents are too big. You can't just send them by email. Because then email can't deliver them. The file is too big. So what do? Then they introduce Dropbox. You know, this thing. And then with time. So now people get to, there's someone called Dropbox. Can you see what I'm saying? So it's the strategy, and this is about thoughtful leadership. The strategy to introduce this. We should feel uncomfortable. I got to UCT, and I said, wow, I cannot believe there's so much paper in this meeting. Seriously. Of course they think I'm arrogant. I'm like, so much paper, you guys are killing trees. We do top environmental sustainability research, but we don't live it. I said to them, when it comes to sustainability research, we are the top, but we don't leave it. Senate, the documents are this big. I said, come on. When I left, no meetings are sent by paper. People started complaining. I said, oh, the special cases, deal with the special cases, those of us who are moving to the future. Remember, my vision was, the world is changing. Are you? And so then people, you get the few people who say, me, I want the paper. This new professor, the bloody narcissist who thinks she knows everything, I'm not doing that. With time, they move on because they realize, actually, it makes it so much better. When I'm flying as a professor, I don't need to carry those big papers and prepare for Senate. That's starting when I get there. I can just open my laptop, get the documents, I'm working. And so, can you mark the same way? Can you allow students who have bad handwriting that it can be read to write the exam? One of my sons is like that. The professors can't read his signature. Of course, I've got sick children, ADHD, whatever, right? There's always a downside to being smart. And so, big downside. So he has to type. And then we've got to allow them, right? How do you make sure that it's all secure? So we have to say what's in it for you. And there'll be people who we will have to drag screaming and kicking, and they will call you as a leader all sorts of names, but you're not leading so that they like you. You're here to serve. They will thank you later. It's okay if they don't get it now. And they say you're a bully, you're a narcissist. It's fine. One day, they're going to say, she was here. And we lost paper, and we moved on, and so on. ChatGPT, I said to the academics, I don't want policy on ChatGPT. ChatGPT is here. The problem is not ChatGPT. It's about how you think about why you teach. Why are you teaching? And so why are you assessing? Why is it that the questions that you think that I'm going to copy on ChatGPT? It's because you're teaching me things that actually I don't need to learn, because when I'm in the world of work, I'm just going to click and they're going to come out. So why are you teaching me them? But so yeah, I'm going on and on because I'm going to get off stage now. Thank you so much.
Just while I help you off the stage. When we think about embracing technology as government, we are perhaps thinking about senior government levels and that sort of thing. But what about the people that are working in municipalities, which are also government? How are they going to catch up to these skills? Is it going to involve massive CETA-type training programs? So if you could think about that and then comment as you want to.
At State SA, one of the things that I had to do when I got there with my boss, Mark Oken, my assignment was to bring the 11 administrations together. And that had to be done through the census of 96. I got there in 95. And the first thing that I had was a mobile phone. I said, oh my God, this thing is a Roger. You know, it is a Roger because, over is used by security guards. It's a sophisticated Roger. So immediately I said, the drivers and the security must have these things. The organization went up in arms, saying, no, it can't be. I said, by the way, this thing is that thing that is used by people who are either drivers or security people. You who are in office, yes, you are advantaged, you can have it. But that started the revolution in technology. And we actually excelled in the use of technology. One of the things that are there, certainly, there are blind spots. And one of those was when the cell phone was very available to almost everybody. We thought that because people have cell phones, they have adopted technology. When we pay, we can pay them from the bank. They can operate an ATM. When you don't assess the reality of the environment, you can go horribly wrong. We recruited people who were matriculants, and when we issued them with the ATM cards, they didn't know how to use them. Yet they have cell phone and everything. So there are concealed technologies because of circumstance that are not accessible. And in fact, we had such a backlog of people, queries, coming around not being able to use the ATM. Obviously, no one in the family was working. No one in the family sent them money through the ATM. They didn't know anything about banking. So as you evolve your technology, you actually have to be mindful of who this technology is designed for and what kind of problem you are solving. It happens throughout in the evolution of technology. So, because people were not working and there are no members of the family that make transactions with them, even though they are actually good with cell phones, they couldn't operate an equivalent, which is an ATM. So change, for instance, I like this idea of the sensors quite a lot, that when we adopted scanning, you always have to be mindful of what the changes you are intending to implement and how they will impact you. One of the biggest problems is not realizing that scale can actually sink you. So you have a small scale thing when you try to pilot and you see that, okay, I have 1 million questionnaires here, instruments, I can scan them and the answers are okay, and then you can actually digitize. Goodness me, when you have 150,000 people out in field using different quality of pencils and the data comes back, you can have a big headache. I had a big headache. We had spent 930 million rands. 930 million rands in a budget of 1 billion, and there was no data coming out. We were left with 70 million to finish the work. And it was because scaling from 10,000 people to 150,000, the variation is so huge that the data comes in very, very difficult circumstances. But of course, we solved that problem. So these are things that one should be mindful of all the time. And then when you have an innovative mind, you really manage to anticipate and foresee these kinds of problems.
Any other comments about the need to develop the skills of people if we're going to go that route?
Absolutely. And on this one, I'll speak about myself. Number one, before I speak about what other people need to do, I'll speak about myself. I identified my own challenges in terms of ICT. I'm just a mere accountant, but I'm in an ICT environment, and people are talking SOC, they are talking blockchain in meetings, and I think to myself, I'm found wanting here. There's something I need to do to empower myself. Then I say to my colleague will know, I always say, speak in a language that I will understand. Speak in that language, but I understand that I'm the one that now needs to up my game. And I said to the board chair, I've got some of my limitations when it comes to understanding ICT in depth. I didn't go to school for that. But because I'm in such an environment, I need to understand it. So please, we need to look at some courses that board members can do to just understand the environment better. So that is why I'm making an example about myself, to say one needs to identify the skills gap. One needs to be ready to be teachable so that you learn the skills that you need, so that you can perform your job with due diligence and with the best care that you can. So now when it comes to municipalities, it's exactly the same thing. We need to identify the skills gaps. There needs to be programs to train and retrain people. Technology changes all the time, so therefore, retraining of people needs to be a continuous thing. As technology advances, people need to keep on being retrained. It is easy for someone not to do their job if they are not really aware of what they need to do. They will stay away from that technology because it exposes their inadequacies. But if they are trained, then they will not feel inadequate. Then they will do the job. So I think it's not only about skilling, but it's also about changing the business processes themselves so that they are also embracing technology. So it's two ways. Business processes themselves need to be changed, and also people need to be trained and retrained and continuously be retrained. Thanks.
If I can just go back to the quote that I used at the start of this. The government and human development are indivisible. Human development cannot be sustained without good governance. Governance cannot be sound unless it sustains human development. Developing the capacity for good governance is a primary means of eradicating poverty. If poverty becomes the focus, then all government departments in that must work at exactly the same way. That, again, would need a massive training budget. Is it something that is possible?
Absolutely. I think it just needs the culture to change. I think there's definite programs that are now talking from cradle to the grave, digital skilling, not just start at an end level or end user level, but also training the parents, right, that are custodians to the kids so that the training is not limited at home. It then cascades up, cascades to the community, cascades to how efficient government does work. So absolutely, and I think there is capability, there's need. And the need just doesn't exist. It's forced on us. The world is changing. That has created the need. And if we then are not purposeful or intentional as government to make sure that we foster that culture of digital skilling, we're going to find ourselves with a completely lopsided in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, in terms of development, in terms of economic generation, because all of those are just spin-off of having taught a person. So it's definitely is a necessity, and I think there's lots of initiatives. One of the sister organizations in the portfolio of communication is NEMISA, whose sole purpose is to train, retrain, reskill, digital skilling. So there is a need, and I think the need has been serviced. I am not sure about the scale, and I think we as the citizens need to propel the scale. We need to be the ones, Lewin's change model talks about freezing, where you identify the need. That's been done. We've identified the need. Then he talks about unfreeze. This is where you're then starting to be innovative about how are you going to adopt this change that is coming, how you're going to make it relevant to the people. And I think that's where we are. And government needs to bring us along. Government needs to bring citizens along to then enable that unfreezing process where we know that the need is coming for a change. We know that we now live in a digital world. However, we don't see digital anything wherever we go into the rural communities. And that then creates the gap again that we are trying to solve in your urban areas. What about the rural areas, right? So there's an interconnectedness in terms of efforts that needs to be done. And I think government is really on the heels to start talking the talk about digital skilling from grave to the cradle, from cradle to the grave. Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. The Prof asked the question that is there a culture where people are eating and the children are starving? So I think in our planning, we must make sure that we don't have such a thing that others are eating while others are starving. So the Premier mentioned about the broadband project, where the province is connecting 2,700 sites through high-speed broadband connectivity. Initially, this project is to connect government sites, offices, schools, hospitals, libraries, right? But we are saying, okay, if a connection point is at a particular site, the government officials use it. But this point has got so much high-speed capacity that the 20 government officials, they are only using maybe 10%. Why can't we use, for example, Wi-Fi hotspots around that point so that the communities around that area can be given access to internet and all other sites? And by giving them the access, obviously, we're empowering them, and you can say, go and look for these free online training courses. In terms of the cost, the major cost was to bring the connection to that site. The extra cost to bring a Wi-Fi hotspot to the site is very minimal compared to what has been done. So I'm thinking that with that kind of thinking, then when a service is rendered in one place, it will be designed in such a way that it can reach many others. So even the original intention was for government officers to use that connectivity. But because you are stretching it to the community, then it makes sense for the community to see that there's a broadband line because they are benefiting from it. So I think it's that kind of thinking that whenever we have a project, even if it's meant for government, we should be able to say, how can we extend this project to the community so that it makes sense, its existence makes sense. And obviously, in terms of the cost, it will also make sense that much as the connectivity is being used for government operations, but the community is also benefiting from that particular connectivity. So it's that kind of thinking that I think will help us to bridge the gaps and also to reach out to the citizens. Thank you.
We're heading towards the end. Perhaps you could just have a couple of seconds thought and then answer the question, what would the first step be for government to foster technology for the benefit of the people on the ground?
You know, I had an interview with Chief Mabi of Mabi Scroll next to Sun City. And it was about a pipeline that would go to Sun City, delivering water there. So the discussion took the route of, if the pipeline has to go to Sun City, then the pipeline must start from Sun City backwards to the source. Because when it starts from Sun City backwards to the source, then everybody along the line will be able to benefit. And participation will be available for everyone along the line. It's like a road. If you construct a road from the main road, instead from the last point of delivery, you are less likely to see participation because each one who gets delivery will drop off from the commitment. So if government has to improve its services, then it must start from the last mile, backwards to the source. Then that way, you will secure inclusivity and you will mobilize society to ensuring that they are participating. But unfortunately, our designs start from the urban, and where the money dries up, it's dried up, and the rural always suffer. So start with the end and move towards the beginning. Then you will achieve true inclusivity.
Exceptionally wise words. Thank you.
If I may just start a little bit on what you asked earlier. Can government afford the training and retraining? Government cannot afford it. The public purse is limited. That is why the private sector has to work with the government to train and retrain. And we have a responsibility as well, those of us who are in government, when we engage private sector. For instance, if when we issue a tender, we sit big tenders, 2 billion, 1 billion. If I'm going to give you 1 billion tender or 2 billion tender, maybe for the next 3 months, what are you bringing on the table? You must train people. You at least help the government. The government is helping you, also help the government. If you're going to have a work for 5 years, in the process, you must be training my people to use your system. You must keep on reskilling them. So the government itself cannot really afford it. But the private sector with the government must come to the party in terms of training and retraining. So I thought I would just touch a little bit on that one. Where do we start? Where do we start? I just saw the mayor now. She's my boss in my other portfolio. And we share same frustrations because when we have meetings, no matter how tired I am, I have to drive to the meeting because there's no connectivity. And I let people know that if I'm going there for a meeting, you're not going to find me the whole day, there's no connectivity. Immediately when I get into the town, my phone will not connect. So it starts with infrastructure. It starts with the digital infrastructure. It has to be there. Connectivity is important. The trainings and all the other things, they come after when the platform has been set. So let us make sure the infrastructure is intact. And government cannot do it on its own. For instance, the problem we have with mayor in our municipality is that Vodacoms, the MTNs, all of them, they're saying, we're not coming, our batteries get stolen. We are not going to come. And what do we then do as government to make sure that the town is safe? Let them bring their towers, let them have their batteries. If they must put them 2 kilometers high for the Amapara not to get to them, let us do that. Let's help them. So I think it's important. The infrastructure needs to be there. And everything else, including the safety and all those things. So it's not just you do one and that's it. It's an ecosystem. So if I may say, that's where we start. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If we could just restrict it to about 1 minute, please.
All right. I mean, she's touched on a lot of basically all my points, because I think they are at the core of it all. I think we start in infrastructure investment. We start there as government, we start there, and we pull all the parties to say, let us invest in infrastructure for South Africa, not for a party, not for a company, but this is a South African problem. And I think the minute we start embracing that this is a South African problem that needs to be solved, we're starting to solve it. We enforce social obligations because we have telcos that have the capability, but it doesn't benefit them too, because vandalism is an issue. But vandalism is an issue because there's no ownership, there's no sense of belonging, there's no sense of resonating with what the government is doing on all the other spheres. So we look at alternatives, ways of deploying infrastructure. We all know infrastructure builds cost super expensive. But we start then to bring alternatives, which then will force prices of those